My Brilliant Sister is the 7th episode of the 2nd season of Frasier. This is directed by Kelly Park, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And I really enjoyed this. I think it might be one of my favourites from this season, actually. I'm not sure, but there wasn't anything in it that I didn't like. It starts off with Freddy and Eve in Mahoney's. They're wearing t-shirts representing the first responders and a Midsummer Night's team, softball teams. Freddy is not too happy because the actors beat the firefighters. Frasier then comes in Harvard attire, and it's time for the Harvard-Yale game, and he is hosting a tailgate. And Freddy asked Frasier if he even knew what a tailgate was, and I kind of had to admit to myself that I didn't. But I did some Googling, I got the knowledge I needed. And then Olivia's sister Monica comes in, Monica being from Yale. She's played by the brilliant Yvette Nicole Brown, and she's talking about her partner, and Olivia happens to mention my Mark. Since when did Olivia have a Mark? Well, obviously, once Monica leaves, Olivia explains, and it was pretty obvious, but she explains quite gleefully, actually, that she just made him up. And we'll learn more about Mark in a little bit. Alan then comes in, and he happens to mention that there's also another party at the president's home, and also that the elusive author Valdo Kotnik might be there, and Frasier now doesn't know what to do because he's hosting the tailgate, but he wants to go to this party, he wants to meet Kotnik, and it did very briefly remind me of a Crane's Critique, where we have another author that Frasier really wants to meet. Thankfully, the episodes are nothing alike, but it did just remind me a little bit of that, and Alan suggested Frasier pretends to be his own twin. And he suggested this and said, and I quote, like the Parent Trap, which didn't really need to be said, but it was absolutely adorable. And Frasier realizes that he can sabotage his own party. And that's ultimately what he decides to do. Just before we leave Mahoney's, Eve asks Freddy to ask somebody on his softball team to play Mark so that Olivia can keep up this pretense that she has a Mark, and she asks him to ask some of the cute ones. And the last thing he says in this scene is rather adorable, and he says to himself, I'm the cute one, which is very, very cute. We then cut to the party, where the rest of the episode plays out. Really nice atmosphere, very well done. I was a little slow, I'll be honest, because in the foreground we have Frasier and David. Nice way to bring David into it, of course. And on the table in front of them, they have Cheetos. And I thought, why is Frasier serving Cheetos? It took me a good minute to realise. In fact, I didn't realise until he opened the dish to serve the pizza, the frozen pizza bagels, that was part of his sabotage plan. I was very slow with that one. And the fact that everybody rushed to the frozen pizza bagels, I think just really helps to show that when it comes down to it, most people do prefer the more simple things in life. Frasier, had he not been trying to sabotage his own party, would have put on a really fine, expensive, luxurious spread, and that's nice enough. But when it comes down to it, frozen pizza bagels and Cheetos are actually pretty decent, and Toblerone. I'm pretty sure I spotted Toblerone on the table as well. Alan then arrives, and he says that actually he was able to get Kotnik to come to this party, and he might already be there, but nobody knows what he looks like. So David is tasked with finding him, which was another good way to bring David a little bit more into the narrative. I'd quite like a David-centric story at some point. I don't know if we'll get that anytime soon, but I'd like to have a little bit more with the character. And meanwhile, while David is doing this, we have Mark 1 and Mark 2. First of all, we have Augustine, played by Rafael Cebrián, who is an actor, a friend of Eve's, and he seems to be really good at the role and really enjoying himself. As soon as Monica and Olivia come in, he kisses Olivia immediately. I did like the moment where when he kisses her, Olivia then looks at Eve as if to say, is this Mark? Otherwise, some random person has just kissed her. So obviously Monica is buying this, but then Freddy comes over and he is another Mark. He got his wires crossed with a message that Eve sent, and he thinks that he is playing Mark. And, well, he's now Mark with an English accent, and it's pretty good fun. And Olivia actually asks Alan to distract Monica so she could deal with this situation. I would have liked a little bit more out of that, as I think we could have got a little bit more comedy out of Alan in this episode, but it definitely wasn't too bad. Olivia is actually the one who ends up meeting Kotnik. He's played by Robert Mammana, and we don't really get to know him too much, but I kind of like that. I like the fact that he was this elusive author. Now we know what he looks like, but we still don't dig too deeply into his character, and I kind of like that mystery surrounding him. Frasier actually thinks Augustine is Kotnik, which was pretty entertaining, and because Kotnik is improvising, he is doing a yes and, where he agrees with everything Frasier says and then expands on it, and it was a nice moment. They didn't drag it out for longer than they needed to, which I think works quite well. Monica then has a bit of an outburst because her own partner is driving her crazy, constantly asking about the TV remote, and I think it was nice to show that actually things are not all a bed of roses for everybody, and the grass isn't always greener. I was expecting her partner to be fake. That's what I was expecting to happen, so I was wrong about that. I thought it would come out that Olivia had lied about Mark, but actually Monica had also lied. But that's not the direction they took, and I thought it all worked really well. Freddy was declared as the better Mark, which he was very happy about, and Frasier, having insulted the real Kotnik, decides at the last minute to go with Alan's advice and pretend it's the Parent Trap and dress up as his apparent twin, which was rather awkward but very funny. And I really enjoyed this episode. Personal highlights, I don't know if I have any specific highlights. I guess Freddy saying I'm the cute one I thought was absolutely adorable. Everybody flocking to the frozen pizza bagels I quite liked. I thought Augustine's performance was really enjoyable. But just in general, the episode as a whole, I thought it worked really well. We don't have a lot of variety in the settings here. We're at Mahoney's and then we're at the apartment and that's it, which is not a problem. In fact, I think it's worth praising that they don't give us a lot of variety in locations, yet it never felt stale. There was always plenty going on, that everything kept moving forward, and there are obviously a lot of characters involved, so there's a lot of jumping around, but in a way that was very well structured, very well crafted, and a pretty funny episode as well. Not the funniest episode, but I did really thoroughly enjoy the execution of this narrative. So all things considered, I'm pretty pleased to say that My Brilliant Sister was a really enjoyable episode of Frasier. Devastating that we only have 3 episodes left of this season. I'd honestly believed, or I guess hoped, that after the success of the first season, which was also 10 episodes, we'd get a longer second season. Maybe, I don't have any reason to believe this, but maybe we'll get the kind of season part 2 in spring, but I don't have any reason to believe that. I'm just hoping. But either way, I'm looking forward to the next 3 episodes, and I really thoroughly enjoyed My Brilliant Sister.